The night was heavy with silence, broken only by the echo of footsteps racing through the dusty streets of the alien settlement. A small alien girl ran with tears streaming down her cheeks, her chest burning from fear and exhaustion. Her name was Lyra, and her heart was breaking with every step, for in the shadows her sister had been taken by slavers, cruel men who showed no mercy. Lyra's cries for help filled the air, but the people of her settlement closed their doors and turned away. They feared the slavers, they feared punishment. No one dared to listen to her desperate plea. She stumbled into the town square, her knees scraped, her hands trembling. She looked around with wild eyes, searching, begging, hoping someone would save her sister. Then she saw him, a human, taller than anyone around, standing alone near a dimly lit forge. His eyes were sharp, and in his hands he held a blade, polishing it with slow, steady movements. The glow of the fire reflected on his scarred face, making him look more like a statue than a man. Lyra's breath caught in her throat. She had heard of humans, stories whispered among her people. Some said they were dangerous, some said they were saviors. She did not know which one he was, but she had no choice. With trembling steps, she ran to him and dropped to her knees. Her voice cracked as she cried out, "Please, mighty one, help me. They took my sister. They will kill her. I beg you." The human did not answer right away. He looked down at her, his eyes cold, unreadable. His hands did not stop polishing the blade. The silence between them stretched like a knife at her throat. Lyra felt her hope slipping. Was he ignoring her? Was he just another one who would turn away? She pressed her forehead to the ground, her small body shaking. "Please, I have no one else. You are strong. I can see it. Only you can save her." Her words were soaked in tears, her voice rising in desperation. Around them, the townsfolk peeked from behind their shutters, watching but not daring to step forward. The human finally set down the blade. His voice was low and rough, like stones grinding together. "Why should I risk my life for you, little one? This is not my fight." His words were sharp, and they cut through her fragile hope. But Lyra lifted her face, her eyes red but blazing with determination. "Because she is my sister, because she is all I have. If you were in chains, would you not want someone to fight for you? Would you not want someone to care?" Her words shook, but they carried truth. The human's gaze flickered, a shadow of something crossing his hardened face. For a moment, he remembered battles long, past, comrades lost, voices begging for help that never came. He clenched his jaw and looked away, trying to silence the storm inside him. Still, he said nothing more. He turned his back, his body like stone. Lyra's heart sank and she sobbed quietly, believing she had failed. She rose unsteadily to her feet, her legs weak, and turned to leave. But before she could take a step, the human's voice came again, quiet but firm. Where did they take her? Lyra froze. Her breath caught, and slowly she turned back to him. His eyes were no longer cold stone, but fire barely hidden. Her tears fell faster, but now they carried hope. She pointed toward the dark hills beyond the settlement. "They took her there to the slavers' camp. Please, we must hurry." The human lifted his blade and strapped it to his back. He did not speak again, but his silence was no longer rejection. It was decision. His steps were heavy as he walked past her, and without another word he started toward the hills. Lyra's heart leapt. She rushed after him, her small legs struggling to keep up. For the first time that night, she was not alone. For the first time, there was hope that her sister could be saved, but deep in her chest fear still lingered. The slavers were many, ruthless and armed. Could even a human warrior stand against them? And if he fell, what would become of her sister? The night grew darker as they moved toward danger. The stars above hid behind the clouds, and the air grew heavy with the scent of fire and ash. Lyra clutched her chest, whispering silent prayers. The human walked beside her, silent as stone. But his presence felt like a wall of strength around her. The desperate plea had been spoken. The choice had been made. And now, the battle for her sisters. Life was about to begin. The human warrior's steps were steady as he walked into the darkness. Yet inside his chest a storm raged. His name was Kale, and though his body was strong, his heart carried scars that no blade could heal. He had seen too many battles, too many deaths, and he had sworn long ago never to fight for anyone again. But the voice of the alien girl Lyra echoed in his mind. Her plea was not just words, it was fire. It burned through the walls he had built around himself, and though he tried to push it away, it refused to fade. He told himself this was not his fight, not his world, not his burden. And yet, here he was, walking beside her into the night. Lyra hurried to keep up with his long strides, her small hands clutched together tightly. She looked at him with eyes full of hope, but also fear. She knew he had not promised anything, not truly. Perhaps he would turn back at any moment. Perhaps he would leave her to face the slavers alone. "Why do you help me?" she asked softly, her voice trembling in the cold night air. Kyle did not answer right away. His eyes scanned the horizon, his hand resting near the hilt of his blade. Finally, his voice rumbled like distant thunder. "I do not help you, I only walk where my feet lead." Lyra frowned, confusion mixing with worry. "But you asked where they took her. You carry your blade. You care." She wanted him to admit it, to say he would fight for her sister, but Kale kept his gaze fixed on the path ahead. His silence was heavier than stone. The night deepened. Shadows stretched long, and strange cries rose from the hills. They passed burned wagons on the roadside, proof of the slavers' cruelty. Lyra's heart ached, but Kale's jaw only tightened. He had seen such things before, too many times, and every memory cut him like a fresh wound. He remembered comrades left to die, voices screaming for him to save them. He had been a soldier once, a protector, but when his army fell, no one came for him. He had crawled through fire and blood, alone. That was the day he swore never again would he fight for anyone. Yet here was this small alien girl, clinging to his side, looking at him as if he were her only hope. Her faith in him was a chain around his heart, pulling him back into a war he never wanted. They stopped near a ridge overlooking the slaver camp. Torches burned below and shadows moved around cages. The sound of cruel laughter echoed through the air. Kale crouched low, his eyes narrowing. He counted guards, weapons, and escape routes. His body moved with the sharp focus of a predator, though his mind whispered that he should walk away. Lyra crouched beside him, her breath quick and shallow. When she saw her sister locked inside a cage, she gasped. A guard turned his head, but Kale pressed a hand against her mouth before she could cry out. His touch was firm, his eyes sharp. For a moment their eyes met, and Lyra felt the weight of his warning. Silence was survival. When the danger passed, Kale slowly lowered his hand. Lyra's heart raced, but she whispered, "There, you see her. You see they will hurt her. You cannot leave now." Her words trembled, but they carried a strength beyond her size. Kale closed his eyes, fighting the war inside himself. He wanted to walk away, to let the past stay buried, but he saw the girl's sister, weak and chained, and he remembered the faces of those he could not save. His chest tightened, his hands curled into fists. "Still," he said, "you do not know what you ask, little one. Men like them are killers. If I fight, blood will flow. Yours, mine, theirs. Are you ready for that?" Lyra's voice shook, but she lifted her chin. "I am ready. For anything. As long as she lives, she is my sister. She is my family, and you are stronger than them. I know it, I believe it." Her words pierced deeper than any blade. Kale looked at her, this tiny being with nothing but courage and love, and he felt the weight of his own excuses crumble. He hated himself for caring, but he cared all the same. The torches below flickered, and the slavers' laughter rose louder. Kyle rose to his full height, his silhouette dark against the moonlight. His hand rested firmly on his sword. His voice was low, dangerous. "Stay behind me. Do not make a sound." Lyra's heart leapt. Hope surged inside her chest. She knew he had chosen. He would fight, maybe not for himself, but for her sister. As they moved closer to the camp, every shadow seemed alive, every sound sharper. Lyra stayed close, her heart racing with fear and hope. Kale's eyes were cold steel now, his steps sure and deadly. He was no longer just a stranger. He was the reluctant warrior walking back into the fire, and though he hated it, though it tore at his soul, Kale knew the truth. This was his fight now. The night wrapped itself around them like a cloak as Kale and Lyra crept closer to the slaver camp. The air smelled of smoke and sweat, mixed with the stench of fear. Fires burned low in iron bowls, casting flickering light across rough tents and cages made of steel. Shadows of armed guards moved back and forth, their laughter sharp, their whips hanging loose at their sides. Lyra's hands trembled as she clutched Kyle's cloak, her eyes fixed on the cage where her sister lay curled, thin and weak. Her heart ached to run forward to call her name, but Kale's hand pressed down firmly on her shoulder. His eyes told her everything. One sound could mean death. Kale studied the camp with the precision of a hunter. He counted guards, watched patrols, and traced every opening in his mind. He saw traps, weapons stacked in piles, and beasts chained to posts, trained to tear apart any who dared escape. His jaw tightened. This was no place for a child. Yet here was Lyra, determined to walk into danger for her sister. "Stay close to me," Kyle whispered, his voice no louder than the rustle of leaves. Lyra nodded quickly, though her chest shook with fear. They crawled down the slope, moving from shadow to shadow. Kale's movements were silent, his steps leaving no trace. Lyra tried to mimic him, though every snap of a twig made her flinch. The closer they came, the louder the camp became. Guards arguing, slavers laughing, prisoners whispering prayers to gods who no longer answered. From behind a pile of broken crates, Kale crouched low, his sharp gaze locked on the cage. He saw the girl inside, younger than Lyra, her small form wrapped in chains too heavy for her fragile frame. She raised her head weakly, eyes glowing faintly in the firelight. Lyra gasped and nearly cried out, but Kale covered her mouth again, his grip firm but gentle, his eyes narrowed. Warning her once more, Lyra's tears streamed silently as she nodded. Kale let go. His mind raced. He could cut through guards quickly, but alarms would rise and dozens more would swarm. Escape would be near impossible. Yet leaving was not an option anymore. Not for the girl clinging to him. Not for the sister. Locked in chains as they waited, two guards passed near, speaking in rough voices. "The boss says we leave at dawn," one muttered. "These little ones fetch a high price. The buyers will be pleased." The other guard laughed cruelly, kicking at the cage as he passed. The chained girl whimpered, curling tighter into herself. Lyra's nails dug into her palms, her anger burning hot. She whispered fiercely, "We cannot wait. They will take her away. Please, we must act." Kale did not answer right away. His heart warred against his mind. His training told him to wait for weakness, for the perfect strike. But his heart, damn his heart, roared that every second brought the sisters closer to loss. A sudden howl tore through the night. One of the chained beasts raised its head, eyes glowing red. Kale froze. Lyra stiffened. The beast sniffed the air, growling low. Its chain rattled as it pulled forward, nose lifting toward their hiding place. Kyle's hand slipped to his sword, ready to strike before they were discovered, but before the beast lunged, a guard snapped his whip. "Quiet, beast," he barked. The creature snarled but lowered its head. The danger passed. For now, Kale exhaled slowly, sweat on his brow. He looked at Lyra, her face pale, her small body trembling. "One mistake," he whispered, "and we all die." Lyra nodded, her lips pressed tight, but her eyes still blazed with unbroken resolve. Kale's mind sharpened. The camp was a fortress of cruelty, but even fortresses had cracks. He saw a line of barrels stacked near the cages, filled with oil. A spark there would create chaos. Fire would scatter the guards. That might be their chance. His eyes narrowed, already calculating the path, but before he could explain his plan, footsteps thundered. A drunken guard stumbled toward their hiding place, humming a rough song. His torch swung dangerously close, its flames licking the shadows. Kale grabbed Lyra and pulled her down behind the crates. The guard paused, frowning. His torchlight fell over the ground where a footprint showed in the dirt. Lyra's breath caught. Kale's muscles tensed. In one swift motion, Kale leapt up, his hand clamping over the guard's mouth. His blade flashed, silent and deadly. The guard crumpled without a sound. Kale lowered him gently, his eyes hard. Lyra stared wide-eyed. She had seen death before, but never like this. So fast, so quiet. Kale's face did not change. He did not speak. But in that moment she understood. This man was no ordinary fighter. He was death-given form. The camp still stirred with life, unaware of the shadow that had entered its heart. Lyra's sister whimpered again, her eyes searching, as if she could sense hope had come. Lyra bit her lip. Holding back the cry in her throat, Kale's hand rested on her shoulder. His voice was steady. "It begins now," he whispered. Together they slipped deeper into the camp, two shadows against the firelight, one a hardened warrior bound by scars, the other a trembling girl burning with courage. The slavers had no idea that the night had already turned against them, and in the darkness a single promise burned. Chains would break before dawn or blood would flood the ground. The slaver camp burned with cruel laughter. Guards circled fires, drinking from metal cups, tossing bones at the caged prisoners. The chained beasts growled low, restless, sensing danger in the air. Kale crouched behind a stack of barrels, his eyes sharp as steel. Lyra pressed close beside him, her small chest rising and falling too fast. Her gaze never left the cage where her sister lay, weak and trembling. The sight cut her heart like a knife. Kale leaned close, his whisper low. "When I move, do not scream. Stay behind me no matter what." Lyra nodded quickly, though her lips trembled. Her tiny hands clutched the edge of his cloak like it was her only anchor. A guard approached, dragging a whip across the ground. He stopped near the cages, taunting the prisoners. "Tomorrow you will be sold like cattle," he sneered. The other guards laughed loudly. Kyle's hand slid to his sword. His breath slowed, his muscles tightened. The time for waiting was over. He rose from the shadows like a phantom, his blade flashing in the torchlight. In one swift strike, the guard fell, silence cutting through, the laughter like a blade through cloth. For a moment, time froze. Every slaver turned, staring at the human standing tall among them. His presence was a storm breaking into their feast. Then the shouts came. "Intruder! Kill him!" Weapons clashed as the guards rushed forward. Kale moved like lightning. His sword cut through the air, steel against steel. Every strike was precise, every movement deadly. Lyra watched in shock, her eyes wide. This man was not just strong. He was unstoppable. But the slavers were many, dozens poured in from the tents, carrying spears and axes. The chained beasts snarled, straining against their bonds. Kyle's blade tore through 2, 3, 4 men, but more pressed in. Their numbers crashed against him like waves against rock. Lyra cried out as a whip cracked through the air, wrapping around Kale's arm. The slaver yanked hard and Kale staggered. Blood splashed across the dirt as another blade sliced across his shoulder. The girl's heart nearly stopped. Fear clawed at her throat. Was this the moment? He would fall. Was this where hope would end? But Kale roared. His strength surged like fire. He yanked the whip, pulling the slaver off balance, and with a brutal swing he cut the man down. His eyes burned with fury, blood dripping from his wounds. Still, the battle grew worse. The slavers brought out strange weapons, rods that sparked with energy, whips that glowed with crackling fire. Kale's sword clashed against them, sparks flying. His body shook under the blows. Yet he did not stop Lyra's. Sister clung to the cage bars, tears streaking her face. "Sister," she cried, her weak voice carrying across the chaos. Lyra's heart shattered. She wanted to run to her to break the chains, but she could not move, not with death swirling around them. Kyle cut down another slaver, but then one of the glowing. Whips lashed across his back. The sound was like thunder. His body convulsed, his knees buckling, blood ran hot down his side. Lyra screamed, "Kale!" Her voice pierced the night. Her small body trembled, but her spirit burned. She wanted to rush forward to shield him, but her legs froze in terror. Kyle gritted his teeth, forcing himself up. His vision blurred. But he raised his blade again. He would not fall, not while the sisters still lived. Every drop of blood only fueled his fury. Every wound only sharpened his will. The slaver captain stepped forward, a giant of a man with armor made of bone and metal. His weapon was a double-bladed staff crackling with energy. "Human," he growled. "You bleed well, but you will die here. Your bones will hang at our gate." The guards cheered, circling like wolves. Cale stood in the center, wounded but unbroken, his eyes locked on the captain. His voice was low, steady. "You will not touch them." The captain charged, his staff spinning. Sparks filled the air as the weapons clashed. The force rattled the ground. Lyra gasped, watching as Cale's strength collided with the brute's fury. Every strike shook her chest. Every clash echoed like thunder. But Cale was bleeding. His arm shook, his breath came ragged. The captain pressed harder, laughing with every blow. "Fall, human, fall!" Kyle staggered back. His blade slipped. The captain raised his staff for the killing strike. Lyra screamed again, her voice raw. Her sister cried from the cage, their voices blending into a desperate plea. Cale's eyes snapped open. A memory flashed, comrades calling for him, voices begging him not to give up. His body screamed in pain, but his spirit roared louder. With one last surge, Kyle twisted, his blade slicing upward with deadly precision. Sparks exploded, and the captain's laughter turned into a cry of pain. The staff shattered in half, and the giant stumbled back, clutching his chest. The guards froze, their courage faltering. Cale's body swayed, his chest heaving. Blood dripped from his wounds, but his eyes burned like fire. He raised his sword high, his voice thundering. "Who else dares?" The slavers hesitated, fear rippling through their ranks. Lyra's heart pounded. For the first time, she believed they might survive this night, but deep inside, dread remained. Kyle was strong, yes, but his wounds bled freely. How long could he stand against so many? How long before even his fire burned out? The first clash had begun, and the war for her sister's life was far from over. The camp was chaos. Flames flickered in the night as the battle raged. The slavers shouted, some brave enough to attack, others stumbling back in fear of the human warrior who stood bleeding but unbroken. Cale's sword gleamed red in the firelight, his chest rising heavy with each breath. Lyra clung to the shadows, her heart pounding so hard she thought it would burst. Her eyes stayed fixed on her sister's cage. Every time her sister's weak hands rattled the bars, Lyra's soul cried out. She wanted to run to her, to break the chains with her bare hands, but she knew if she moved now she would only fall into the slaver's grip. The slaver captain staggered to his feet, clutching his broken staff, his face twisted with rage. "Kill him!" he bellowed. "Tear him apart!" The guards surged forward again, their glowing whips crackling, their spears aimed for Kyle's heart. Kyle raised his sword once more. His arms trembled, his body screamed with pain, but his will did not falter. He struck like a storm, cutting down two men, blocking a spear with his blade. Blood spilled across the dirt, his and theirs mixing into one. But there were too many. A whip lashed across his back. Another spear sliced his thigh. Cale grunted, his knees buckling for a moment. His vision swam, yet he pushed forward, refusing to fall. Lyra screamed his name. "Kyle!" Her voice rang out above the battle, desperate, pleading. Her sister reached through the cage bars, tears streaming down her face. Their cries struck Cale's heart like thunder. He staggered, blood dripping, his sword dipped low. The slavers laughed, circling him like wolves. "The mighty human bleeds," one jeered. "He cannot last." Another shouted, but Cale's eyes burned with fire. In that instant, he remembered the girl's plea, remembered the sisters' faces. He remembered promises left broken long ago, and he refused to let this night end the same way. With a roar that shook the camp, Kyle surged forward. His blade swept wide, striking with the fury of a man who carried more than his own life. He cut through 3 guards in a single strike, spun, and drove his sword into another. The slavers screamed, stumbling back, their confidence breaking under his storm. Lyra gasped, her tears falling faster. Hope sparked inside her chest. For a moment she believed he could win. Cale turned toward the cage, his eyes locked on the heavy chains that bound Lyra's sister. He pushed through the last 2 guards in his way, each one falling to his blade. His arm shook as he lifted, his sword high. The blade came down hard, shattering the lock with a ringing crack. The chains broke. The cage burst open. Lyra's sister collapsed into Kale's arms. Her weak voice whispered, "Sister," before her head rested against his chest. Lyra cried out in joy, rushing forward. She threw her arms around her sister, their tears mixing as they clung together. "I thought I lost you," Lyra sobbed. Her sister's weak hands clutched her. "Back. I thought I would never see you again." For a brief moment it felt as though the nightmare had ended. For a brief moment, it felt like victory. But then the camp alarms rang. Loud horns blared across the night. Tents ripped open as more slavers poured out, dozens, maybe hundreds. Their eyes glowed with fury. Their weapons raised high. Kale's chest heaved, his body leaned against the broken cage, his blade dripped with blood. He had freed the girl, yes. But now they were surrounded. Lyra's joy turned into terror. She grabbed her sister's hand, tightly. "We must run," she cried. Kyle's eyes scanned the camp. His wounds burned, his breath came heavy. Escape seemed impossible. The slaver captain roared, his voice booming across the chaos. "No one leaves alive. Burn them all." Torches were thrown. Fires spread quickly. The cages lit up in orange flame, the smoke rising thick and choking. Prisoners screamed as the fire closed in. The ground shook as the chained beasts were released, snarling and charging. Forward, Kale forced himself to stand tall again. His blade lifted, his voice low but firm. "Stay behind me, no matter what." His eyes met Lyra's, and though his body was breaking, his gaze carried a promise. He would not let them die. The sisters clung together, their faces pale in the firelight. Around them, the slavers closed in like a sea of steel and flame. Kyle's wounds bled freely. His muscles burned, but he gripped his sword tighter. This was no longer about a battle. This was survival. He had broken the chains, but the true test was only beginning. And as the fire roared higher, and the ground shook beneath the feet of their enemies, Lyra's heart whispered the truth. Before dawn, someone would not walk away from this place. The camp was fire and fury. Smoke curled into the night sky, sparks dancing in the air like angry spirits. Slavers shouted from every side, their weapons gleaming, the chained beasts snarling as they lunged forward. The sound of steel and fire drowned everything. Kale stood in the center, his sword gripped tight though his body trembled. Blood streaked his arm, his chest heaved with every breath, his eyes burned like coals, unyielding even as his wounds weakened him. Behind him, Lyra clutched her sister close, both girls pale and shaking. "Stay behind me," Kyle growled, his voice low but sharp. He spread his stance, preparing for the storm. The slaver captain stepped forward, his broken staff replaced with a jagged axe, his face twisted with rage. "You should have run, human," he snarled. "Now you will die, and the girls will scream as we drag them back into chains." Kale's lips curled into a bitter smile. "You'll touch them only over my dead body," he answered. The captain laughed, a cruel booming sound, and raised his axe high. At his signal, the slavers surged forward, dozens of blades flashing. Kale moved like a shadow of death, his sword cut wide, steel ringing as it struck. The first slaver fell, then another. His body burned with pain, but his will burned hotter. He fought like a man with nothing left to lose. Lyra's heart pounded. As she watched, her sister clung to her, whispering weak prayers. Every time Kale staggered, her soul screamed. She wanted to run to him, to shield him, but she knew she would only slow him down. The beasts roared as their chains snapped. They lunged into the fight, claws tearing, eyes glowing red. One charged straight for the sisters. Lyra screamed, pulling her sister close, but Kyle saw it. His blade swung with fury, cutting the beast down in a spray of fire and blood. The sisters gasped, their bodies trembling with terror and awe. Kale glanced back just once, his eyes fierce. "Run when I tell you," he growled, then turned back to face the storm. The slaver captain charged at him, axe swinging with deadly force. Their weapons clashed, sparks bursting in the air. Kale grunted under the strength of the blow, his knees nearly buckling. The captain laughed, pressing harder. You are finished, human. Kale's teeth clenched. His arms shook, but his spirit refused to break. He twisted, forcing the axe aside, and drove his sword into the captain's shoulder. The giant roared in pain, staggering back, but Kale stumbled too, his legs weak. Blood poured from his wounds. His body could not endure much longer. The slavers saw his weakness and rushed him from all sides. Their weapons struck, cutting his flesh. His blood darkened the ground, yet still he stood. Still he fought. Lyra cried out, her voice breaking, "Kyle, please don't fall." Her sister sobbed into her arms. Kyle heard their voices, and though his vision blurred, their cries pulled him back from the edge of death. He roared, swinging his sword in a wide arc, cutting down 3 men at once. His body moved on, will alone. His fire burned against the night. The slavers hesitated, fear flickering in their eyes. The captain raised his axe again, blood dripping from his wound. His voice boomed, "Kill him! Kill the human!" Kale lifted his sword one more time, his arms heavy as stone, his legs barely holding him, yet he stepped forward, defiant. "I said, you will not touch them," he growled. The battle turned savage. Sparks and blood filled the air. Kale fought, as if the earth itself lent him strength. Each strike was slower but no less deadly. Each breath was pain, but he forced it into power. Lyra's eyes blurred with tears. She could not believe it. This man, this stranger, was laying down his life for them. For her sister. Her chest ached with something more than fear, something deeper. The fire spread wider, consuming the tents. Smoke thickened. The camp became a battlefield of flames. Prisoners screamed, guards shouted, beasts howled, and still Kale stood, holding back the tide, but his strength was breaking. His sword slipped. In his hand, his knees wavered. The captain closed in again, axe raised high. The final strike was about to fall. "Kale!" Lyra screamed, her voice ripped through the night. Her sister weakly echoed her cry. Two desperate voices calling to the warrior who refused to die. Kale's eyes snapped open. His chest heaved. His fire blazed again. With a roar, he swung upward, his blade crashing into the captain's axe. The weapon shattered, the force echoing like thunder. The captain staggered, stunned, and Kale drove his blade through him. Silence fell for a heartbeat. The captain's body crashed to the ground. The slavers froze, their leader fallen, their courage shattered. Kale swayed, his sword dripping, his body broken, but his eyes were still fire. He raised his blade weakly, glaring at the remaining slavers. "Who's next?" he growled. Fear rippled through their ranks. Some fled into the smoke. Others dropped their weapons. Lyra's tears spilled. Her sister sobbed. They rushed forward, catching Kale as he fell to one knee. His blood stained their hands. His voice was faint but steady. "You live. That's all that matters." The battle was not yet over. Fire and chaos still raged, but the tide had turned. The last stand was not his death, it was his defiance. And though his body was broken, his spirit had already won. The night was quiet. At last, the shouts of the slavers had faded into silence. Their leader lay dead, their weapons scattered, and those who lived had fled into the darkness. The camp, once full of fire and cruelty, now smoldered with broken cages and smoking ruins. Kale knelt in the dirt, his body covered in blood. His sword slipped from his trembling hand, clattering to the ground. His chest rose and fell with slow, ragged breaths. His eyes burned with the effort to stay awake. Lyra rushed to his side, her sister clinging weakly to her. She fell to her knees beside Kale, her small hands pressing against his wounds. Tears blurred her vision. "Please, you cannot die," she cried. "You saved us, you cannot leave us now." Kale's gaze shifted to her. His lips curled into a faint smile despite the pain. "I told you. I would not let them touch you," he whispered, his voice rough, almost breaking. Her sister, frail and weak, crawled closer. She placed her small hands over Kale's, her voice trembling. "Thank you, human. You saved me. You saved us both." Kale's heart tightened at their words. He had sworn never to fight again, never to care again, yet here he was, bleeding for 2 children who were not his blood. Yet they looked at him as if he were their protector, their family. The fires burned low. Around them, casting soft light across the ruins, the freed prisoners stumbled from the cages, their faces weary. Many bowed their heads to Kale, whispering words of gratitude. They had seen him fight. They had seen him bleed. They knew no other warrior could have done what he had done, but Kale barely heard them. His focus was only on the 2 sisters clinging to him. Their tears stained his cloak, their arms wrapped around his broken frame. In that moment, he understood something he had long forgotten. Why he once fought. Why he once carried a sword. It was never for glory, never for gold. It was for faces like these, for hearts that still believed in hope. Lyra pressed her forehead against his arm, her voice trembling. You are not just a warrior. You are our savior. You gave us back what no one else dared to fight for. You gave us each other. Kale closed his eyes. The weight of her words sank deep. He felt something inside him shift, something heavy that had chained him for years. It was not gone, but it was lighter now. As dawn began to break over the hills, the first rays of sunlight painted the sky in gold and red. The night of terror had ended. A new day was rising. Kale tried to stand, but his body swayed. Lyra quickly moved under his arm, supporting him with all her small strength. Her sister did the same. Together, though weak, they held him steady. You cannot walk alone, Lyra said firmly, her voice stronger now. Not after what you did for us. You belong with us now. Kale looked at her, surprise flickering in his tired eyes. Belong, he muttered softly. The word felt strange on his tongue, yet it warmed him more than the fire ever could. The sisters nodded, determination shining through their exhaustion. Yes, Lyra said. You are family now. Whether you want it or not, you are ours. Kale almost laughed, but it came out as a broken sigh. Still, he felt something rare. Peace. Together they walked away from the ruined camp, step by step into the rising sun, the land behind them still, smoked with the memory of battle. But ahead stretched the promise of life. The prisoners followed, forming a quiet procession, their eyes full of respect. Kyle did not lead them like a commander, but they walked in his shadow, for they knew strength. When they saw it, Lyra kept close at his side, her sister leaning on her other arm. They were small, fragile, yet in their presence Kale felt unshakable. Their faith gave him strength he thought he had lost forever. When they reached the edge of the hills, Kale paused, looking back one last time. The battlefield of chains and fire lay behind, a graveyard of cruelty. He whispered low, almost to himself. Never again. Lyra heard and looked up at him, her voice soft but certain. No, Kale, never again, because now you have us, and we will not let you walk alone. He turned his gaze to the sunrise. His body still ached, his wounds still burned, but inside his chest a new fire stirred. For the first time in years, he felt he was not a lone warrior wandering without purpose. He was protector. He was family. And though the galaxy was full of battles yet to come, one truth was now unbreakable. The bond forged in this night of blood and tears would never be broken.